This is History Myths and Myth Conceptions. And today's myth is the Byzantine Empire. The Byzantine Empire is a country that never existed. But there are quite a lot of people who don't know that this is simply a term invented by historians for their own convenience, mostly for periodization purposes. Essentially, this is what they call the Eastern Roman Empire. The official name of the country was always the Roman Empire. Its citizens were known as Romans. So when and why the term Byzantine was chosen? Because if you'll think about it for a moment, it is actually a weird choice. A bit like calling the United States something like the Empire of Philadelphia or the Union of New Amsterdam. Why would you do that? The word Byzantine has quite an interesting history, and at some point it takes an unexpected turn. Actually, it takes an unexpected turn in the middle of the 19th century, when this Byzantine Empire construct becomes a preferred term. And this decision was mostly dictated by politics. Initially, as we know, there was an ancient town of Byzantium, which was seriously damaged by Septimius Severus during the Civil War, and then rebuilt. It occupied a very nice strategic location, so the Emperor Constantine decided to move his capital there and refounded the city as Nova Roma. Apparently, he thought it was a more advantageous approach compared to staying in the nearby Nicomedia, which was Diocletian's capital city. Eventually, Nova Roma became known as Constantinople. The name Byzantium kind of vanished, but it seems that the locals occasionally referred to themselves as Byzantines. The locals mean the population of Constantinople. It is a little bit like people from Manchester call themselves Mancunians, in a way referring to the Latin name of the city, Mancunium. But not all English people are Mancunians, and not all inhabitants of the Roman Empire, even the eastern part, were Byzantines. It is believed that some 5th century historians from Constantinople tried to use the word Byzantine as some kind of an adjective, but it really became more or less widespread only in the 15th or the 16th centuries. And yes, as an adjective. Byzantine means mostly of Constantinople. The Greek-American historian Anthony Kaldelis, and I recommend you to read his works on the subject, including the article From Empire of the Greeks to Byzantium, which can easily be found online. So Anthony Kaldelis argues that the term became popular after the 15th century Athenian historian Laonikos Chalkokandilis started to use this word extensively for different political and nationalistic reasons. He started referring to Constantinople as Byzantion and emphasized the Greekness of the inhabitants of the medieval Eastern Roman Empire, which, by the time of Laonikos, pretty much included only Constantinople. So it kind of finally made sense to use the word Byzantines when talking about the citizens of the country, since it became almost a city-state. His works were translated into several European languages, and in the 16th century the term Byzantine became reasonably popular. People in the West started publishing compilations of works of the Eastern Roman historians and frequently used titles like Byzantine History or something like that. Hieronymus Wolff is usually considered some sort of a pioneer who made the word popular in the West. But yes, Byzantine was still mostly an adjective. Nobody knew about this made-up Byzantine Empire, which never existed. And this is where it all gradually becomes more and more political. The rise of Greek nationalism in the 19th century led to an idea that the Eastern Roman Empire should be seen as essentially a Greek empire after a certain period of time. It wasn't a new idea, obviously. Western European scholars routinely referred to this country as Empire of the Greeks, or something like that, toning down its Roman legacy. Especially since, the East followed the Orthodox Christianity. And especially since there were countries that claimed to be the only successors to the Roman Empire, like the Holy Roman Empire or the German nation. Referring to the Roman Empire as the Empire of the Greeks wasn't accurate, but it's been done routinely for quite a long time, even in Eastern European countries. It must be mentioned that when the East still existed as an actual state, referring to its ruler as the Emperor of the Greeks and to the country as the Empire of the Greeks was obviously considered an insult. There is even this anecdote that Otto the Great, ruler of the Holy Roman Empire, once asked the emperor at Constantinople for his daughter's hand in marriage, but addressed him as the Emperor of the Greeks in the official document. It didn't go well, as you can imagine. So yeah, there was a tradition of reframing the Eastern Roman Empire as some sort of a Greek empire. So modern Greeks naturally grabbed this idea and started to use it to their own advantage. The history of the Eastern Roman Empire became a part of the history of the Greek people in general. It is still a part of the history of which some people are unaware. Have you seen churches in Greece? Why do you think they frequently have flags with the two-headed eagle? Well, that's why. The Greek War of Independence started in 1821 and eventually culminated in creation of, well, an independent Greek state. But a rather small one. Greeks wanted more. They wanted to liberate as many Greeks as possible. And naturally, they had ideas of restoring the Empire of the Greeks, which includes taking control of the ancient imperial capital of Constantinople. The European powers assisted the creation of the Greek state, but a number of them started seeing this ideology as dangerous. So, in the middle of the 19th century, historians made a quite conscious attempt to take the Eastern Roman Empire from Greek nationalists and sympathizing Orthodox Christians and started labeling it as the Byzantine Empire. The word Byzantine stopped being an adjective. It became the name of the country, a made-up name. All of this was pretty much a part of the war propaganda machine, because the Balkans at the time were more or less perpetually at war as everybody tried to escape the Ottoman rule. And the breaking point was more or less the Crimean War, because this reframing of the Eastern Roman Empire was not only directed at the Greek state and Greek freedom fighters, it was also directed at someone who actually had means to take Constantinople, crush the Ottomans, the sick man of Europe, and redraw the map of the Balkans. The Russian Empire, who also saw itself as a successor of sorts of the Roman Empire, at least the eastern part of it. The main goal of the Crimean War, which started in 1853, was the control of the Straits, the Bosphorus and the Dardanelles, a geopolitical goal of prime importance for Russia. The fall of Constantinople would have changed the balance of power in Europe and created a number of independent Orthodox Christian states in the East, the states allied to Russia or directly controlled by Russia. Greeks obviously saw this development as a major opportunity to incorporate former Greek territories into Greece. Some even advanced the idea of re-establishment of this Empire of the Greeks, probably with the capital in Constantinople. It is very unlikely that Russians would have transferred Constantinople to Greece, but even without Constantinople, the country at least could have doubled its size. As the Greeks were volunteering to fight against the Turks, Western Europe was very concerned about the situation, and they did everything to preserve the Ottoman Empire from the imminent collapse. So Britain and France just openly declared war on Russia. Joint British and French forces also helped to subdue Greek freedom fighters, occupied Athens, and suppressed all the nationalistic, meaning pro-Russian, press. So this was the atmosphere where this ideological switch to the Byzantine Empire happened. The most influential scholar who popularized this concept was a German historian, Jacob Philipp Fellmerayer. His ideas about the Byzantine Empire walked hand in hand with a peculiar racial theory he developed. Just before the war, he argued that, first of all, we shouldn't call the Eastern Roman Empire neither Roman nor Greek, because it wasn't, well, neither Roman nor Greek. It was in fact controlled by the Hellenized Slavs, who spoke some Greek, but they weren't really Greeks at all. They were genetically inferior people who gradually ruined the empire and switched to barbaric orthodoxy. This is the main justification why their country should be labeled as the Byzantine Empire. Speaking of Greeks who lived in Greece during this time, well, he explained that not only the population of, Byzantium was Slavic, also the population of Greece was Slavic as well, with some influx of Albanian blood. All of these people were not connected to ancient Greeks genetically. They had zero Greek blood, they just spoke some broken Greek dialect, and that's it. I can see some government officials from the Republic of North Macedonia taking notes right now. Okay, Felmiraer also was very dissatisfied that Greece became an independent state and implied that it kind of made sense to kill all these Hellenized Slavs and probably all of the Slavs in general. Now I can see how people from North Macedonia stopped taking notes. As you might expect, the ideas of this dignified intellectual were quite popular during the Third Reich. But Felmiraer was instrumental in promoting this idea of this construct of the Byzantine Empire, and gradually, decade after decade, this term pretty much replaced everything else. And now we have this fictional Byzantine Empire, introduced mostly as a tool to underline that this country wasn't really Roman, and at the same time, somehow, it wasn't really Greek. So just kind of forget about it and don't pay attention while we're trying to save the crumbling Ottoman Empire. This is a remnant of the 19th century wartime propaganda, and it is quite misleading.